Welcome back to Everything and the Gym. This episode we had so much fun with. It is actually going to be 2 episodes. So you are currently listening to episode 3 of season 4, and you can find episode 4, the second part of this episode, next week. Welcome back to Everything and the Gym. I am your host, Shelbi, and today I have with me somebody who I would call a mentor, a friend, and honestly, I feel like there's so much more to it, but here we are.
Here we are.
What is your name?
My name is James Perez.
And I ask this question to everybody.
Sure.
How old are you?
I'm 1,000 years old. That's my go-to answer for everybody. But I really just crossed 40 back in November.
Yeah. I'm so excited to dig into that. But first, there's business that has to be taken care of.
Serious business.
We have a cool handshake, and I'm excited to show it off.
All right, let's do this.
Okay, it's got to hit the first time.
It's got to.
All right. Oh.
Oh.
A little stretch.
You weren't feeling that, huh?
One more?
Why not?
Okay. Oh, so much better.
Second time's the charm.
Yes.
We nailed it.
Yeah.
I like the first one.
Okay. Well, we'll take it. We'll take both.
Sure, why not?
I kind of feel like I need to explain you.
Okay. All right. This should be great.
You and I work together.
Yes, we do.
What do you do for a job?
I am the personal training manager at Crunch Fitness, and so
Yes.
I am a personal trainer myself, but I also oversee the staff there that trains people.
Yes. And then I teach group fitness. And a while back, I started asking you questions because I love to ask people questions. And then we were in a meeting, and we were all told to get to know somebody, and I chose you.
You did.
And there was one question I asked you that made me keep coming back for more. Do you remember what that question was?
Oh, absolutely. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Yes.
Yes.
I asked this question to over a handful of people, and your answer stuck. And then this question keeps coming back. Do you remember your first answer?
I know that we've had this conversation a few times, but I believe it was something about being able to stay present in the current moment. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
You had said something along the lines of you didn't know if there was perfect happiness per se, but your idea of it was to help as many people as possible.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, because I have a tough time with the word happiness sometimes. Like, I think that happiness is a fantastic thing, and when it visits you, I think that's amazing. But up until I guess we even really had these conversations real regularly, I focused more on meaning. And so when you brought the question to me, I looked at it from that perspective that I had forever. I'm like, I think happiness is being able to find something meaningful, because meaning will sustain you, in my personal belief. But now it's kind of, I still believe that 100%, but I believe happiness comes more regularly than I probably had given it credit for before.
Yeah, you have to look for it.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep rolling with this topic for a little bit longer because it does have so many parts to it.
Yeah.
And then I'll get back into how I asked you to be my friend.
Okay.
All right. So from that perspective, we have now shifted to a different perspective by talking about it. And one of the last ones we talked about was a balance between your mind and your heart. And how it dips, and it's not always the perfect line of control and balance. It's usually one pulls to the other side.
Yeah, I think that when you use the word perfect, I'm like, oh, perfect means that you can ride that line beautifully. I mean, it's almost like poetry. But more often than not, while you're chasing it, it is a balance of saying which one is going to lead and which one is going to follow. Is your heart going and your mind says, okay, I'm going to trust where you're taking me? Is your mind saying, hey, I'm going to protect you? And your heart says, okay, I'm going to trust where you're taking me. And it's about learning to navigate that, because being 1,000 years old, I found that when one follows the other, it doesn't always turn out perfect. It doesn't always feel happy. And sometimes it doesn't just feel happy in the moment. Sometimes when you let one lead versus the other, it seems like maybe it was either a mistake or, it isn't what you thought it might be. And then sometimes months, years down the road, you realize, oh, this is why I did this. It was not happiness in the moment, but it was maybe more long term. So, but yeah, it's a scary line to try to ride.
Yeah.
But when you get it right, oh my gosh, it's so fun.
Which we've also talked about, the feeling of like perfect happiness maybe isn't like this long-term thing. It never is. It's more of like you reach like a blip of happiness, and like sometimes it's like way up there and then you like drop down a little bit. So you're having like a great day.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is like what it's like to be in that perfect happiness zone. And then you drop down a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Because, I mean, would it be the same if you touched happiness all the time?
Yeah.
Like if you were just constantly in that state, just like anything else, then happiness would just become ordinary. And I don't want to live in a world where happiness is ordinary. Yeah. I like the pursuit. I like the journey to try to get it. And then every now and again, boom, getting to touch it just for a moment. Because those moments are what make life, I think.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that whole question, I remember sitting on your answer for a while, and then I had told you, I was like, you remind me so much of me and a light to others, because I got to watch you interact with so many people, and you are a light. And I remember, I haven't told you this yet.
Okay.
I went to Taryn's house before I came and talked to you about being my mentor and my friend.
Okay. So you both know.
And I went to her and I was like, I don't know why, but I am supposed to ask this person to like help guide me in some form. And I was like, I don't even understand it, because I've never reached out to anybody to like help me go in like a positive direction. And she was like, yeah, you should do it.
Oh, that's when you use the word mentor, like I love the idea of mentorship. I've never had anybody formally say it out loud with me. And so when somebody says mentor to me, I'm thinking, oh, they think that you know how to help get them somewhere worth going. And
But
instantly it's like, I don't know if that's true or not, which I don't know if any mentor is like, oh yeah, I'm the person for it.
yeah.
But
I wish I would have recorded the conversation between you and I, though, when I first sat down to ask you that question.
Yeah.
Because it was a long conversation. And I remember we were both like, okay, we need to be friends. We need to like work together. But it's been like, it's almost been like a childhood friendship.
yeah.
There's been so much like space to just be wondering and like playful, like a handshake. Like I have seen nothing but net positive changes since September because of you. This whole setup is because of conversations you and I had. And I can't thank you enough for being my friend.
Oh, I'm in the same boat. You actually made a comment, and I didn't know how to, even now, sometimes I think about it, I'm not sure how to deal with it, but early on you said, I feel like there's someone else like me. Mm-hmm. And I think yesterday I used the word kindred spirit. I was like,
Yeah.
I never even thought of that possibility. Mm. And then the more conversations that we had, the more genuine that I realized, oh, this is a real friend. This is a person with zero expectations. This is a person who is literally just trying to grow in life, who is not looking for anything other than to work out ideas and have the space to be, maybe to find out who they are. Mm. And they're willing to offer the same thing. I think about it now because I don't know if we are the same. I feel like we are sometimes, and I like to think we are because I admire a lot of things about you. And so I'm like, oh, well, if we are the same, then that means, and I respect this person, then maybe it's okay to turn around and respect myself too. But the things that you say, I hope that I could be the person that I feel like you think that I am.
Mm-hmm. I mean, can we talk about the workout we had this morning?
Okay, let's do it.
I have been needing that push in the gym for a long time. I work out with Taryn all the time. She's great. I love her. But, like, I know that there's uncharted potential in me that, like, especially in the gym, like, nobody's pulling it out of me. And, like, I know that's something that, like, I have to pull out myself. But it's nice to work out next to somebody that is, like, equally as, like, driven and, like, disciplined and pushed as hard as I push myself. And yeah,
I agree. I think it's the same thing. Like when we have conversation, like mentally, it's the same thing. It's a space where, because I mean, training people, I mean, that's kind of just what I've done in my whole fitness journey. But I feel like I've always been in a position where I went and acquired knowledge, I practiced things, and then I tried to share that with people who are maybe just a few steps back in the journey of where I used to be. But standing like next to you, or when we're pushing sleds and realizing, hey, I'm not having to stop and say, hey, this is maybe what you can do, or keep pushing. I'm just like, no, I'm pushing myself to try to keep up with this person. I like to say, I'm like, I want to be a monster that trains next to monsters. Not all the time, but it's fun when it happens. And I think that's what happened. And I think that's what happens in our conversations. I don't feel like there's an imbalance on anything. It's
an equal playing field.
For sure. And when you get to sit across or stand across from an equal, then you get to really test what's inside. And that's what I really want to do. And so that was the whole excitement about coming here. I'm like, oh, I get to sit across from somebody. And I don't have to either have any guardrails on my thoughts, or I don't have to worry about if I say the wrong thing. It's just like, no, we're playing in this space and it's okay. Whatever happens, we'll navigate it. And I used the word earlier, but it feels like poetry. And so I'm willing to see how far this plays out.
I should punch you right now.
Do it. I mean, that was very aggressive, but I mean, if that's what you feel, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about ride class for a second,
Let's do it.
because I get told all the time, I'm going to come to ride class. And then people don't actually follow through with their words. And so when you told me the first time you were coming to ride class, I kind of brushed it off, and I was like, okay, I really hope you come, but I don't know if you were actually going to show up. And then you kept coming back. And then you kept coming back. And now you are one of my favorite people to sit across from and ride. Why do you keep coming back?
Okay, so I would like to rewind back to whenever you were talking about, we had this meeting at work. Before that meeting, we had actually sat in a meeting, just me and some of the other management staff, and we were talking about, we were all really new to what we were doing in this facility, and we were trying to see things that we might be able to do differently, things that we can implement to kind of turn things, because things weren't going in a great direction. And one of the things is I noticed that there was a lot of division between people who worked in different departments. We all had the same craft at the end of the day, but we did it in different ways. And so I had asked them if we could give 2 goals for everyone at that meeting. One was to meet 1 or 2 people that you don't know that work in this building with you.
That was your idea.
Yeah, it was. And I don't know if I had told you that.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. And 2, that I asked all of the staff, I was like, the management, we have to show them what we want them to do. So why don't we step out and take some classes? And we had that conversation. I had no idea that I was the person that you had picked. You just had come up to me afterwards, and I was trying to touch base with everybody. And then I asked you, hey, what can I do to help you? And you said, come take my class. And so I was like, okay, I told these people I would do that, so let's go ahead and do it. And the first class that I went to, first of all, I thought I was in shape. And like 5 minutes into that class, when my quads were burning, I'm like, maybe you're not as in great a shape as you thought you were.
Let me get you right.
Yeah, it was humbling for sure. And every trainer I've brought in since all says the same thing. Like, I had no idea this was going to be that difficult. And so, but the environment was different than anything I could have imagined. The music was fantastic. I'd never heard anything like it before. And to see a person standing up there giving a positive message while we were sitting there all just really dying, I thought was inspiring. But there was a particular song that had played, and before the actual music went, there was a moment where there was a gentleman, I believe his name is Alan Watts, and he went on a monologue talking about, I believe what thinking was and how it affects us. And in that moment, while I'm sweating, breathing hard, the legs are burning, my brain starts running in a different direction. And from that moment, I realized I don't know what this room is, but I feel like I could grow inside of here. I was so glad that I'd come to the class. And every class that I've gone to since has been just one step after another on like this part of growth. It's more than just, like the pain in my quads, the breathing hard, the sweating is all just the price that I pay. But what I get in return is a real insight on another human being saying, hey, it is possible. I see you. And I see that where you are now and where you want to go is possible. And I know it sucks. And I know that you're struggling. Do it anyway. And I believe you when you say it. And so to me, I'm like, until the day that I don't believe the words that you're saying up there, I will be in that class. Yeah, it's amazing.
You're so consistent with it. And so I love it when I know you're coming to class, I'm like, ooh, like it's going to be a good one. And so I can't thank you enough for coming back. And then you give me feedback too, and I appreciate it.
And I will say for anyone who hasn't taken the class, 100% go jump in that class at least one time, preferably Saturday at 9:30. That way I can see you. But it has the potential to change your life. I 100% believe that. There's a woman who works out at the gym, and we had a conversation about the class afterwards and the effect. And it was almost, I don't know how to phrase this. I'm going to use her wording, but I know what she meant. She was like, it's almost like going to a church service. Like you go in and you have this like energy that hits you and you feel like maybe I can do this. Maybe I do have more in the tank. And whatever you want to call it, there's an energy in that room. And I've also told you, I'm like, it's almost like getting a peek inside your mind when you're in there.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like the studio. I'm like, hey, this is your world and you're just sharing it with people.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Thank you. Okay, so what is your favorite song that we have done in there?
Ooh.
I'm very interested to know this one.
I guess I can answer this with two different ones if that's okay. I'll break the rule. One, every time Skyfall hits, it does something because you always throw that part out of, hey, the first real intense portion, you're giving your energy to somebody else. And so every time it's an opportunity to think of a new person, somebody who means something to you. You get this moment in time to really just think and then give energy to them. And I believe the more that I do it, the more that energy somehow, some way radiates and it touches and affects that person. But more recently, you had played Dare You to Move by Switchfoot, which is going to be my anthem for 2025.
Yeah.
And it almost cemented for me. I'm like, what you're doing is the direction to go. This person, this friend, this genuine friend that you have in your life, as much as you call me a mentor, I'm like, this person who is mentoring you, James, is worth taking the gamble on. And so that's going to be my jam. 2025, right. Dare You to Move.
So, okay, let's open that box a little bit. Okay. What does that song mean for you for 2025?
I feel like that there is, and we've talked about this, like there's like this untapped potential probably in all of us. But to me, like I spent my time trying to pull that out of people. And we have a hard time sometimes turning that inward to say, hey, do we have that same thing that we say other people have? I know that it's true when I talk about other people, but is that inside me too? And over the past few months, I started to believe, I'm like, yeah, it is. But if that's the case, then what is that going to be? What moves are you going to make that are going to be different, that your life is actually going to go in the direction that you want to go? So for me, I'm like, look, I want to be in the best shape of my life. Turning 40 years old, I am probably in better shape now than I might have been. Maybe there's been one other point in my life where I would say that it would be a great competition to see those two versions go against each other. But I would like to be the best version physically of myself, mentally, and then I would like to chase some big goals, big dreams. Yeah. And I'm comfortable talking about any of it that you want me to, but 2025 is going to be the time where I make the moves that hopefully take this next chapter, this next 60 years of my life, because I will live to be 100 years old.
I know. I want to get into that.
But hopefully this year is going to be the springboard for what's going to happen for the rest of the story.
I am so excited to watch you grow in 2025. Let's rewind just a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, there's so many doors that I want open right now, and it's hard to pick from. Okay, let's rewind back to, you have said that you have a goal in life to basically be a shepherd, of like helping as many people as possible, which you've done. You've helped a lot of people, and I am a witness to that, and I know that there are a lot of people that'll vouch for that. How do you need to grow? Like, what are things that you think are going to help you help as many people as possible?
I think you know the answer to this. Well, I know that you know the answer to this. But it was, I think, the framing of a word that I loved my whole life. I used to have a facility, and it was right in the name. It is going to be, I think, discipline. But I've always looked at that in a very broad way. And then it was framed to me that discipline is actually a breakdown of two different components: patience and control. And let me finish here. When I realized that that was probably the best definition I'd ever heard, then I'm like, okay, what do you have a struggle with? Where do you want to grow in? When I say discipline, do I need to grow in my patience with myself or my self-control? And at times I believe the answer flip-flops of what it is. And so anytime that I come up to something now and I either get frustrated, which, I mean, you've had the opportunity to see a few times when I wasn't able to perform like I would like to, about practicing that patience in real time. And then sometimes just controlling the way that I speak, the way that I react, what I give my time and my attention to, and even controlling the way that I move regardless of how I feel. And I feel like if I can grow in those areas, the more I can grow in those areas is what I should say, the more I would be able to help other people who would probably also like to grow in those areas. And so, yeah.
It's been really cool to watch those two words bounce around between our conversations. Like, I remember the first time we actually spoke about it, and I had given you the analogy with the gym. And so, like, most people's words are consistency. Like, I want to be consistent, but, like, what happens after you're consistent? Like, are you patient enough to see it through? Are you, like, actually, like, when you're looking at it through a lifting perspective, you have to be patient with yourself because the muscle doesn't grow overnight.
Yeah.
And then you also have to be disciplined enough to have control. So, like, once you are able to reach a certain weight, can you control it? And so there's been multiple times, especially with, like, my little minor hip injury here, and the words patience and control comes back almost weekly. Over weekly. It's in the conversation all the time. And I appreciate those two words so much more now than I did before we had that conversation.
Yeah, I think that almost anyone that is trying to do anything significant, I think, can almost boil it back down to those two things. Do I have the patience that I need in the areas I'm trying to grow with that it's not going to happen overnight? Or do I have the control on the things that I'm actually actively doing to hold myself back? Can I control myself so that I'm not self-sabotaging? And do I have the patience to do that long enough so that I can actually see the growth? And seeing somebody like you who, I mean, from the outside looking in, I'm like, oh my gosh, she has it figured out. She is motivated. She's super happy all the time, just very positive. And I believe that you are all those things. But then what the phrase that you always say, you're just a human being. And so in those moments, seeing where, yeah, I do want to run. I do want to go and do this. Oh, I felt better yesterday, so let me go ahead and keep going. And be like, even just because you feel better for one moment, seeing you having to exercise those things in real time. One, it's good to see. I'm like, oh, she is human. But even in those moments where she's human, she's practicing what she preaches, which that in and of itself is a pretty rare quality. A lot of people can tell you how to do something, but when you say, oh, can you actually do it? Even if they're right, if they don't actually practice it, then the words don't matter. And so, yeah, patience and control. I think that's half of the equation of life is patience and control. Yeah.
Yeah, patience and control with love and kindness.
Yes, that's the other half. I'm saying if life has to be about disciplined love, that's where I'm at right now. And discipline is patience plus control, and love is comfort and encouragement. And if I can comfort you and encourage you with patience and control, I can truly love who you are. Just in general. I mean, that's just how I'd like to operate in life. That's how I'd like to be able to help people. But the thing that I think has most resonated with me about after I've met and been able to talk to you is I'm like, oh, you first have to do that with yourself.
Yes.
You have to tell yourself, do I need comfort in a moment or do I need encouragement? And if I need either one of those, make sure you apply those with patience and control and see if it doesn't move you in a positive direction. And so far, every time, it's took me in a positive direction. So I'm going to keep going down that road.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Yeah, thank you too. Hey, entrepreneurs and creatives. Tired of the same old work from home job routine? Discover San Angelo Studios, your new favorite co-working space in downtown San Angelo. At San Angelo Studios, choose from flexible desk, private offices, or vibrant open spaces tailored to your needs. Enjoy high-speed Wi-Fi, fully equipped meeting rooms, and a cozy coffee bar to keep you filled all day long. But it's not just about the workspace. Join a community that inspires collaboration with regular networking events and workshops. Plus, with 24/7 access, you can schedule your own work. Ready to elevate your workday? Visit sanangelostudios.com and book a free tour today. San Angelo Studios. Work for yourself, not by yourself. I even have it written on my mirror at home in my bathroom. Patience and control equals discipline.
I like that. I like using those. The day that we'd walked in the ride room and somebody had written all over the mirrors, I'm like, what a great way to use a tool that we look at every day and we probably take for granted.
That day was so powerful. I had so many dots connected in that week, even just for like this. But I haven't talked about that day a whole lot, and I'm glad you brought it up because I would like to bring it up. But I preach all these positive words in the ride room all the time. And I remember the day before we had sat down and I had talked to you. Maybe it was that day. I don't know. It was very close. We had talked about being friends, and then the next day you were like, did you write on the mirrors? And I was like, no. And you're like, it looks like something you would do. And I was like, okay, I need to go in there. And something about those words looking back at me, and like, I'm able to like see myself through those words. It was like, you are worthy. I can't even remember the other words that were written on there, but just like these positive affirmations. And there's something so powerful of like walking into a room with a mirror that you can stand in front of, and then those positive words are like reflecting on you. I don't know, it was like a reminder of like what I give to others in there, like looking back at me, and I cried.
Oh, yeah. And I would have bet money. After I walked in there, because my first thought was like, oh my gosh, look what she did. And when I walked out of that room, I went to go find you just to tell you. And I was like, hey, the mirror's in there. And you looked at me like you had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, wait a minute. And when I asked if it was you, you were like, no. And there was just genuine surprise. I was like, okay, whoever wrote this was meant to happen in this moment.
Yeah.
But even now when you say when you walk in a room and you see these words on a mirror, I'm like, yeah, but when you walk into that room specifically, this world that for the time that you're in it, it's you, it's your world. And then to see something like that, I mean, you can't make that kind of stuff up.
Yeah.
It's one of those what is life moments.
What is life?
Yeah.
I've said that to you so many times.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question.
Yeah. So a lot of people, well, I don't think anybody knows this, but like most of these questions in this deck of cards are questions that you and I have talked about. And most of them were so good that I was like, okay, now I need to know everybody else's answers.
Yeah, I remember talking to you when you had the idea of the deck of cards and you were explaining it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope she trusts her instincts. Just run with what it is, because I could hear it. I could see it. I was like, this is something that not only in the context of like this kind of conversation, like is a fantastic idea, but I just think in general in life, like this is a magic deck of cards. If you want to go out and you want to get to know somebody, or people out there who don't know how to do that, you take something like this and you can open your whole world up. And the questions in here are amazing. Whether they're serious, whether they're gym related, whether they're fun or funny, it doesn't matter, because it's just being able to surf different parts of what's really going on inside of you, and then giving somebody the space to do the same thing. And yeah I'm excited about these things.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have to say, you asked me a question that nobody really asked me before I even decided to do a season 4. I was in very much limbo, and you had asked me what I wanted. You're like, what do you want? And I remember like I was working out by myself that day, and I wrote it all down. And then after my workout, I sent it to you, and I was like, this is what I want. And it was talking about, like, I want to make a difference. I want to make a positive mark on the world. I didn't know, like, if it was the podcast. I didn't know if it was different things. And I had all these questions written out. And then, it was, if I was to do the podcast, I didn't want to edit. I didn't want to produce. And, like, we had a good conversation about all of that. And then, boom, another dot connected. And I don't know if I would have been as open-minded to the idea of season 4 if you hadn't have asked me. Like, if you hadn't have made me think about, like, what I actually wanted.
Yeah, I remember you saying a bunch of people were telling you, oh, you shouldn't put it down, you should keep going, you should do this. And what I've personally come to realize in life is you can't necessarily, even if you feel like it's the right thing, you can't tell somebody you should or shouldn't do that, because then the idea doesn't come from them. Even if it works out wildly, like there will be something like, well, I wasn't going to do this happened here. But I could tell when you would talk about it still, there was still a light, like in your face, you could see it, like it's almost bittersweet. Like you're like, I loved this thing, but it just wasn't unfolding in the way that maybe you wanted. And so instead of trying to give you an opinion, I just wanted to ask you questions to see and wherever it landed, I'm like, okay, hopefully it just takes her where she wants to go. But saying, hey, what do you want? Hopefully that takes you in a space where you're like, what do I want? If there was no obstacles in the way, then I just got to make the rules, and what is it that I would want? And look where it led.
Boom.
Yeah, for sure. All because of you. To me, I'm like, this was all just about framing something for what was already inside you. Like you had all of this, and who knows what's coming after this? Because I remember you talking about, like, oh, this is how I felt at the end of season 3, and I didn't know this. And it's almost just like where it was like you're in the darkest part of a forest right before you step out into the light, and then now look where you're at. And just imagine, because I imagine, like we talked about, you're touching that blip of happiness right now. Enjoy it. But there's going to come moments where you're going to go back into that forest, and you might have a similar feeling, but just know the step that you took from 3 to 4. Imagine what it's going to be from 4 to 5. Imagine what it's going to be from this level to the next. I mean, hold on to that, because the ride should be pretty cool.
It's going to be a journey.
For sure.
Speaking of journeys,
okay,
let's talk about your journey to 100.
Oh, yes.
You have a goal to live to be 100.
I do.
Why?
When you talk about, like, being 100 years old, I can imagine people are like, that's a long time. Why would you want to do that? But if you look at it in the context of, I mean, there's like a 1 in like 14 trillion chance you were even born. And I like to think of myself as a scientist at heart. The only way I understand anything is through like maybe facts and data and but I'm thinking, oh, if you look at a grander scale, 100 years is nothing. And the fact that I was 1 in 14 trillion, that I was even born, 100 years in a universe that's been around for 13.1 billion years, an Earth that's been around for a little over 4 billion. The fact that I'm going to be here for 100 years, I get to see joy, pain, beauty. I get to see it all. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to be 100? Why wouldn't you want to see as much as possible? Is it going to hurt? Parts of it will. Will I get to see some really amazing things? Absolutely. Will I get to meet some cool people? Why not? Yeah, you had a little dirt on your shoulder. Yeah, but why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not try to get as much out of this ride? We didn't decide to be here, but we can decide what to do with it. And so, now you did frame it to me in a way that I hadn't thought of before. And so I would be okay with that too, of either living 100 years or getting 100 years worth of experience while the time that you're here. And I realized once you'd said that, I was like, yeah, I think I'd be okay with that. If I really lived, that means you have to live the moments to the fullest as much as you possibly can. Risk the things that you have to, risk feeling the difficult feelings, and chase the things that matter. And I'm like, but if I can do that, then at the end of the ride, hopefully I'm sliding in, beat up and ready to go, but hopefully it'll be a good story.
So what are some of the measures you are taking to make sure that your body and your mind get you to 100 years old?
Yeah, I realized, like, I mean, I would just say that before I want to be 100, but the day that I was like, hey, what if you really just tried to be or you really tried to chase this as seriously as possible? And then there's a gentleman, a Dr. Peter Attia, and he talked about the best way to live for longevity is to just take the last decade that you want to live. So if you want to live to be 100, for me, that'd be 90 to 100. You know, say, okay, what do you want to be able to do in that decade? I want to be able to mow my own grass. I would like to buy my own groceries. I'd like to be able to go to, hopefully at that point, great-grandkid soccer games, whatever I'd like to do. Okay, what does it take to be able to do those things? Then he calls it backcasting. Then I need to take that, whatever it's going to take, and I need to reverse engineer what I would need to be doing now to get there. I need to watch my sleep. I need to make sure that I'm eating the correct foods and that I'm moving my body. And we can go as far in any of those as you would like to. But I think, and I need to work out my mind. I need to mentally stimulate myself. I need to give myself the proper rest, the proper work, and the proper nutrition. You do those 4 things, and I believe that you'll have the life that you want.
So how many hours of sleep do you think you need in order to get there?
Okay, so what I have personally learned is that 6 is the bare minimum, because your sleep cycles run about 1.5 hour cycles per night, and you want to have at least 4. Everyone is going to be slightly different as far as how much sleep they can get away with. But for me personally, I'm living off 6. Now, the golden number for me would be to get 5 sleep cycles. 7.5 hours, I think, is perfect for most people. 9 is probably the upper range. If you get 6 sleep cycles, great. You don't really want to go over that. But for me, if I can get a minimum so far of 6 hours of sleep, it seems to be working. My body recovers like it needs to. I wake up without an alarm clock most days, and I have energy throughout the day, pretty sustained. And I'm able to do all my workouts like I need to. So I think that's the number. No, it's all an experiment. So we'll see how if I keep, aging gracefully, or if I just start going off the edge of a cliff.
I mean, the skincare looks on point. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps that I'm this brown, so
yeah.
I'm just saying. How many hours do you sleep? Because you're an early bird like me.
I am.
Yeah.
I am usually in bed between 8:30 and 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And so the math on that is around 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do people react when you tell them that you go to bed at 8:30 or 9?
Taryn makes fun of me all the time.
Oh, that's crazy.
No. I don't know a whole lot of people that followed that schedule. 8:30 is very early for a lot of people, but 8:30 rolls around and I'm like, you guys, my brain is starting to dwindle. I can stay up a little later if, I've had a nap. But Yeah, I am okay with people judging me for it because it's what works for me.
Yeah, I think it's weird because I'm like, it's the same 24 hours and we're just sliding the scale of when we sleep. But I mean, like some people, I get it. It's not for everybody. Some people can get their best work done in the evening. They can go to bed super late and they just wake up later. And I'm like, cool. As long as you're getting those hours like you need to, who cares? But there's something about getting up 4:30 in the morning when the whole world is still asleep and you have the option to do anything. I used to get up and just go run in the mornings. I'd put on an audiobook and I would run in the middle of the streets and the world was mine at that point because nobody else is willing to pay the price to get up that early. And so I can stay up late. There's a lot of people who do it. I just don't want to share the world.
Yeah.
It's a selfish thing. I like to get up early because then it's mine.
It is so peaceful.
It is.
Yeah.
And I learned there's a few people out there. There's not many, but there's a few people out there that are out that early. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to keep running with it.
All right.
Yeah.
So what kind of nutrition do you need in order to get you to that goal?
Okay. I imagine that people get sick of me saying this word. But first and foremost, I will tell you, you need to get your protein.
Yes.
It's a buzzword, too. Everybody's like, protein, protein, protein. Most people don't even know what that is. And I don't know if you want me to get nerdy.
Go nerdy.
Yeah, okay. Because I think this was helpful. When people say the word protein, what it is just a chain of 9 amino acids. And so don't expect you to know what all this stuff is. I just say, imagine 9 Lego blocks. You click them together. That's protein. And your body needs that in order to repair the adventures you go on throughout the day. You're doing damage to your muscles. You need repair. That's what it uses, those building blocks. And so if you can make sure that you get enough protein in your system, you can take care of the machine that you have. You can go on whatever adventures and you can do it in a healthy and competent way. And so that's what I would tell you first. Get your proteins, get your fat. Your proteins are going to repair your muscle. Your fats will give you your energy. Now, anything on top of that, we can have a conversation about. Because protein is essential, fats are essential. This might be super controversial for some people, but there is no such thing on earth as an essential carbohydrate. And so if I'm thinking about living as long as possible, I'm going to get what my body needs and then see where it goes. And it's working out so far.
Are you taking any supplements to help aid?
I do. Now, I'm super careful about when I talk to people about supplements because I don't think people need a whole range of supplements. And even things like taking like a protein powder. While, yes, it does help, it's not necessary. I take amino acids too just because I don't want to just repair the damage that happens to my body throughout the day, but I also would like to build back stronger because I want to go on more adventures. And then I also take a multivitamin, but I take one that has a special kind of B12 in it because my body can't it can't process B12 in its natural form. So I take a supplement to help me with that. But other than that, I don't take anything. I try to get as much as I can out of my nutrition. And it doesn't take a whole lot if you just take a second, read, and then really listen to your body. Just get in the kitchen, play in the kitchen, play in the gym, play with your sleep, play with all these things.
Childlike wonder.
Yeah, for sure. You do all of that and see if you don't turn out okay. I like that you said childlike wonder too, because I mean, kids aren't sitting there thinking about, they sleep when they're tired. They go grab food when they're hungry. You know what I mean? They move their body when they feel like moving. They listen to themselves. Why can't we do the same thing?
We lose it over time.
Why?
I think because we lose that childlike wonder. We just had a conversation about this, but I believe that we lose that childlike wonder because we get tasked with things that we're told we are supposed to be doing. And so over time, it's like you get up, you go to school, you get up, you go to college. You get up and you keep going to college, and then you go to college and you go to work. And then like all these things are essential for you to keep living and doing these things. And then we slowly over time start losing like what it's like to have a handshake, what it's like to just go have fun running around, going to the gym.
Doing a handstand?
Yeah, doing handstands, cartwheels, frolicking in the flowers. I don't know. We lose all of those things. And you and I have both had conversations of, like, it's good to bring those things back too. Like, it's all inside of us. That childlike wonderment is, we just consider it a gray area. It's not colored in anymore.
Yeah, I think that it's easy for somebody else to start telling you what it is to value.
Yeah.
if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get these things, and these things are valuable. And so they're worth pursuing. And I'm not here to tell anybody, going out and having this job and making this much money and getting these things aren't valuable, because who am I to say that? But I do know that when I was young and I didn't think about those things, I just thought about being able to go out and be free and move my body and just genuinely connect and play games with people. I was happy. Mm-hmm. I did have peace. And so, granted, yes, we do have to be responsible with what we do, but why not, like I was just saying with your workouts, why not play while you're in there? Mm-hmm. Why not, while you're in the gym, take a second and try to shuffle? Or say, hey, let's race. Let's go sprint. Let's see who can do the longest handstand. Like, all of these things, it doesn't have to take away from you being an adult, and it doesn't have to take away from you chasing goals, but it's just about enjoying the ride along the way. If I'm trying to get from point A to point B, why not do it in the most creative way possible?
Yeah.
When you say you lose it, I'm like, yes, I believe some people have misplaced it for sure. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I've learned from you is like, I don't know if we lose it, we just bury it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes somebody else pulling it out. Mm-hmm. And when somebody pulls a little bit out of you and you're willing to accept it, then you'll pull a little bit out of them. And then if you let that snowball just keep going, then the journey becomes fantastic.
It's so fun.
It is so fun, isn't it?
Do you remember the first time we raced sprints?
Oh, yes, for sure.
With Kindle?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were just like, let's sprint before. And I was like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden, I didn't know. I mean, I'd seen Kindle before, but I didn't know who he was. And you're like, oh, I'm going to ask Kindle to race. And I was like, this guy looks like he can run. All of a sudden, it went from to being fun, like, okay, you're going to have to try to keep up. And the guy's a beast for sure. We started running, and I was like, all right, she knows some monsters for sure. But at the end of it, it was so fun.
Such a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know the last time that I had a foot race with somebody. But now to me, I'm like, all right, anytime somebody says you want to race, I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because it's fun.
That's the energy I've been looking for.
Yeah, for sure. I think if more people followed it, they would have better journeys.
Yeah.
But who am I to say?
We also have a conversation a while back about ideas and how everything is circulated from an idea. And that is a conversation that has played in my head quite a bit. It's even like the podcast, it started as an idea and it's kind of snowballed. Thank you for phrasing that in a way where I look at things now of like, oh, like this light setup all started because somebody said a light needed to be put on a stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you use the word, what was it, manifestation? Or we were talking about the idea.
The idea. Like I've never really been one to be like, okay, I'm manifesting this.
Yes, I think that we were just talking about the idea of manifestation. I don't think that you had come across and said, hey, I believe this is how things happen. I think you were just asking about the concept. Mm. And I think you seemed surprised by the way that I reacted. I was like, yeah, I think it's true. Mm-hmm. And you were like, really? And then I was like, yeah, I think it's just a different language. Again, I'm a person who likes to think in things of like the actual, if you just break it down to its simplest form. And so I'm like, what is manifestation? People say, oh, I think something, I put the energy out there, and then it happens. And I'm like, well, it's a really surface level way maybe to think of it, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But if I take it all the way down, I'm like, well, these cards didn't exist. Mm-hmm. They weren't a thing. And then your mind goes wherever the brain goes to pull ideas out. And your brain tuned to the idea of putting cards together. And then it started playing with that idea. And then it pulled that idea from the realm of imagination. And now they are a physical thing. Mm-hmm. And that happens with everything. Anything that you can see, somebody first had to think of it. They had to be disciplined with their thinking, creative with their thinking. And then they were able to make everything. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, if that's true and I can see the tangible evidence, then where's the limit? Mm-hmm. We can do pretty much anything. If you can imagine it, when people say that, I'm like, I think literally, okay, if you can imagine it, you can do it. Mm-hmm. Not just as this inspiring, let's go get it. I'm like, no, that's how things work.
Yeah.
If I can imagine it, then I can just start refining it. I can just use my thinking.
Hey, business owners and brand builders. Are you struggling to create eye-catching content for your social media without breaking the bank? The Local Guys have you covered with affordable content packages designed to elevate your online presence. With the Local Guys, you get top-notch visual content without the hefty price tag. Our packages are tailored to help businesses like yours shine on social media, attract more followers, and engage in your community. Plus, our convenient texting service sends you reminders to schedule and post your content, making it easier than ever to stay on top of your social media game. Ready to elevate your social media game affordably? Visit thelocalguys.sa.com today and find the perfect package for your business. The Local Guys, affordable content to elevate your brand. We've also had that conversation of like when you can imagine things, like you're gonna have thousands of ideas. We all do. Mm-hmm. It's the ones you choose to actually follow through with.
The stones.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk about the stones? Yes, because you introduced me to the idea, and now I see things sometimes as literal stepping stones.
Okay, yes, we're going to talk about stones, and then we're going to talk about different stones.
Okay.
Whenever you and I first started talking, I had brought up the idea that there are all these stones in front of you, and those stones are decisions. And so, like, say you have 3 different decisions right in front of you. As soon as you step on one of those stones, the other 2 kind of just, like, fall away. And so you don't know if that stone you're going to stand on is 100% sturdy. You have to trust that whatever you're moving forward into is what is the path that you are supposed to be taking. But sometimes, like, it's okay to stay on the stone that you are on for a little while. And it doesn't have to be a decision today. It doesn't have to be a decision tomorrow. But you know the stones are there. And sometimes they don't always appear. Sometimes you have to wait for them to come up. But yeah, stones are your decisions, and sometimes they're important.
Oh, yeah. I like the way that you said that. I have a slightly different take. Like, sometimes, like when you say you step on the stone, you have to trust that there's weight there. And I think sometimes what you're really having to trust is that regardless of what happens after I step on this stone, that I'm going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe there's weight. Maybe I fall through and I have to swim myself back up and try to find another stone to stand on. But it's not the stone that I put my trust in. It's myself. Like, I'm okay regardless of what happens on either side because I took the step. I took the leap of faith to put my weight on something. And just the person you become by having the guts to do that, I think is the real prize. It's what we're really probably going after, is to be the person who can make the decision and be okay with what happens on the other side. And that's what I took from whenever you said that. I'm like, oh, that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be able to step on the stones, see what happens.
And say, I'm okay with this one.
Yeah, and I want to be able to do it well enough that those stones take me to 100 years. Because any of those stones could take me out before. But if I play the game right.
Yes.
It's a lot of stones.
It is a lot of stones. It's over 100 stones because you make more than 100 decisions in a year.
100%?
Yeah.
So you said you wanted to talk about different
Other
kinds of stones.
Yes.
Okay. I have no idea where this is going, so I'm excited.
I am going to bring up the book you gave me.
Okay.
So The Alchemist. One of the first conversations we had was a very long conversation. It's over 3 hours long. And one of them, you told me that this book changed your life. But you told me not to buy it. And I want you to explain what this book meant to you, because I read it in like 3 or 4 days. And I saw meaning in it. And I saw meaning in it with conversations that you and I have had. And so, yes, please explain.
Yes, that is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. I've had several copies of it. If you saw the first few that I had, you would have thought I was a crazy person, how much I wrote and underlined and had my own little ciphers in there.
How long ago was that when you first read it?
Ooh. Gosh, maybe about 4 years ago. I couldn't tell you exactly. I don't remember. I just remember ever since I've always had a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've given away copy, even the personal copy, that first one I had, I gave it away to a young lady I was mentoring who was a wild spirit, but got in a lot of trouble, and I was trying to help her with that. But it was just a short amount of time I was going to be able to mentor her. So I was like, I'll probably never see you again. And so this is the only way I know how to help you long term. And then I gave it to her, bought another copy, did the same thing, marked it all up, and then did the same thing. I was mentoring someone else. And I believe that the story is universal. I love the way that the gentleman wrote it. They only mention someone's name in there one time at the very beginning, and the rest of it is just you can fill yourself in, you can fill the characters in with whatever is going on and the people you see in your life. But essentially the story is about a young boy. He chooses to be a shepherd because he wants to be able to go and see the lands that he lives in. And he thinks that that's the best way to do it. He thinks that if he gets to see the lands where he lives, that he'll live in, I guess, what you might call perfect happiness. And he is content doing that until a king one day goes and talks to him and opens his mind to the idea of maybe these lands that you live in aren't all there is. Maybe there's something bigger if you let go of this comfort that you're in. Even though that's a beautiful comfort that you live in, if you let that go, to go chase a discomfort that might allow you to find so much more. And so the young boy, he's a shepherd. He sells off his sheep so that he can go buy a ticket and go see the world. And as soon as he gets to his destination, instantly he loses everything. And he has to take on the world with nothing and just his wits, and he has to build something. Not even outside. He'll do that outside with his life, or externally, I should say, but he has to build up the fortitude to be the man that he needs to be so that he can have the life that he really wants, a life that he doesn't even know is possible. And for the people who haven't read it, it's the same thing as the ride class. I would say, read The Alchemist, take Ride, change your life. It's amazing.
I went through it so fast.
What did you think of it?
It's the first book I read all of 2024. I have been in a very, very bad book slump this year. And I knew from the moment you said that you wanted me to read it, I was like, okay, done. Just based off the conversations that you and I have had. But what I found was a lot of our conversations ebb and flow with some of what is said in this book, along the lines of everybody is on their own journey. We're all put out here to find the best version of ourselves. And oftentimes, so many people are stuck in the way life is. There's a character in this book that has had the same shop for 30 years, and he has done it the same way for 30 years until a character comes along and switches the thought process just a little bit, and then it changes everything. And I think what I got most from this book is you don't know it all. You don't know everything, and you have to ask questions, and you have to learn from others around you, and you have to be able to be teachable in the moment of your mistakes, in the moment of what's going on innerly, as well as what's going on outwardly. You have to be teachable in order to find the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and you have to make the decision.
Yeah, you have to.
When you make the reference to the stones, I imagine that partially we're talking about in the book, the king gives the main character 2 stones, and he says, when you don't know what to do, it's put a stone in each hand. One is basically essentially a yes or a no, or a left or a right, and then you mix them up, and whichever one you pull is where you go, almost like letting fate decide, which almost okay, cool, this will help me pick where I need to go. But the character quickly realizes, when you let fate decide, there's always a cost to it. There's always something that a greater cost than you might see, and more often than not, instead of letting fate decide what it is you need to do, you just need to take the ownership, take the responsibility, make the decision yourself, and then live with what happens on the other end, whatever it is. Even if the same cost is going to come, own that cost. And yeah, after I read that, I was like, I felt like maybe in life that's what I was doing, just kind of letting fate decide. Other things just tell me, go here, go there. Instead of saying, no, make the decision. Whatever decision, whatever comes with it on the other end, just make the decision. Leave the stones in your pocket. And at times, while that is more difficult, for sure, there's more pain in when it doesn't go right, but there is so much more joy when it does. And I think that cost is worth paying every time.
The book also talks about a universal language. And I remember telling you one day while we were at the gym that I just believe that people just need to be loved. There needs to be more love in the world. People need to love themselves more. People need to love others more. There's not enough of it. And then I read this book, and that is one of the things that they talk about is, like, there's so many languages spoken between so many different people. Even like speaking in the English language, like mine and Taryn's language is different than mine and somebody else's language. And so the one language, though, that everybody feels together is love. It's universal. You can love plants. They keep growing. You can love trees. They'll keep growing. Like, that's all we need is love. And I don't know. I liked the idea of that.
I do too. Now, like my question then is, like, what do you define that as? Like, what is this universal language they're talking about? Because it is universal, so it can't be the words. It can't be like talking to a person who doesn't understand your language, or even talking to a plant. I mean, yes, we can say words to people, and it can hopefully affect them in the way that you want, but in reality, I'm like, no, it's just my personal belief is that universal language is like almost an energy that you radiate. Like, you can talk to a plant, and the plant will grow if you give it love. But to me, I'm like, it's the intent behind it, the condition of your heart when you're saying something. The words are almost irrelevant.
The vibrations.
Yes, just what it is at the end, because everything is energy. Now, it can sound woo-woo, it can sound super crazy, but at the end of the day, science and most religions will all come to that same consensus. How we get there, they kind of quibble about, which who cares?
Yeah.
But we get to the same place. And so if that's the case, then it tells me you need to really be careful about the energy that you're putting out. You want to speak a universal language, then genuinely just care about what it is that you're doing. Care about the person across from you without expectation. That's why I think about who you are to me, our friendship. I'm like, genuinely, I feel like this human being has no expectation of me. This is just a human being who's just saying, hey, I'm here to explore thoughts, explore the world. This is me on a journey. I'd like to know who you are, but I don't need anything from you. There's no hidden agenda. There's no alternate anything. It's just, and to me, that's the universal language. If you can live like that with as many people as possible, as many things as possible, I think that those vibrations will not only give you a rich life, but everything around you that same rich life. Why else are we here? What else would you want to do?
There's so much you can learn from others, like, just like you and I alone, the amount of things I have learned from you just from, like, the journey that you have been on. It would take a lifetime to learn people like that. And so I think you have to choose, like, I don't want to say choose wisely, because I think you can learn something from every single person, and I think you should try and learn things from a lot of different people. But I also think there's some kind of reward in learning somebody's mind on a deeper level, just so you can look and say, like, I'm not here to judge you, but, like, I just want to understand, because if you're going through this, then I'm almost certain that there are other people that are probably going through the same thing. And so, like, how can I help people if I'm not like on a mission to learn about others too. Like I can help more people if I know like what more people are actually going through.
Yeah, you can relate to more people. I do agree though, like you do have to choose wisely because you can learn something from everyone, but the way that lesson comes across, like it's vastly different. When I see you interact with people, and it's something that I feel like the mentorship comes in, and you handle things or teach people to communicate with a mode of gentleness, to learn a lesson in a gentle way. And if I've got to choose between one or the other, I mean, some people you can learn things from, but it's going to come in a very difficult, very hard, very brutal way. And those lessons stick too. But if I've got to pick between one or the other, I would rather be able to learn things in the gentlest way possible, because it's going to...
But that's why your circle is so important too, or the people that you put in your life around you.
Sure.
Because if I was to put myself with a negative mindset group of people, your brain adapts so easily that you put me in a room with a bunch of negative people for a week straight. I bet you I walk out of there saying some negative things about myself. But if I choose to put myself in a room full of positive people, or a room not even full, but with a handful of positive people, I can almost bet I'm going to walk out of that room feeling pretty good about myself and about the people that were in that room.
You know what that makes me think of?
What?
The 5.
The 5.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had that conversation too.
Yes. Do you want to tell people what the 5 is?
The 5 is you adapt traits from the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Okay. And I only bring up the 5 because then what is the forever 5?
The forever 5 is, I told you that it would be the biggest flex to make it to be as old as I am, as old as I get to live to be, with a solid 5 of people. The forever 5 are people that are part of your life, that are there to stay. And then how cool is it to watch 5 people grow all the way into the entire adventure of their life? Yeah.
It's a big concept for sure.
It's a big concept.
Yeah, because whenever we talked about the 5, I'm like, if you go back and think about different eras in your life, you probably can point out about 5 people that you were around in those times. And those 5 are probably going to adapt forever. But I can also think that you, along the way, you'll pick up people from those 5. 4 might go out by the wayside, but 1 might stick it out. And then later on in another era, another one might. And then you're cultivating the 5 people who have the biggest impact on you for the duration of your life. And seeing the traits inside those people that you really admired and the things that they were able to impart to make your life, hopefully make you choose the 5 well, hopefully to make your life super rich. I mean, instead of 1 lifetime, you're living 5 lifetimes. Yeah, it's a great concept. And it makes you really think about the people that you are putting in your circle. Really, who are you going to invest into? It makes it easier to say no to some people. Say, hey, I'm going to take on the traits that I see you have. Do I want to have that or do I not? Because I don't want to live like this forever, or I hope I get to do this forever. And
your mindset can change over time too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So if you find 5 people who are willing to not be the same, they're willing to grow. That to me would be the only prerequisite to having somebody in my 5 is I want people with growth mentalities, because we are not going to be, I hope we're not the same forever. If we were, that I don't want to live 100 years if it's just going to be this forever. Yeah. Because you're going to get bored of it. You're going to get sick of it. You're going to want to do something different. I want people who are willing to live the 5 lives and then come back and share those lives. Go on all the adventures, and then sometimes we go together, sometimes we don't, but we always come back so we can share that. How rich is your life going to really be if you're able to make it to the end with 5 solid homies?
Yeah. All right, you guys, we had so much fun during this conversation that we went on far longer than we anticipated. So we are going to snip here, and you can find the next part next week. Make sure you download, like, and subscribe, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Make sure you have a beautiful day, friends. Bye.